actually down year over year in terms of investment from 2019. But going into Q4 2020, it has been a totally different story, as the year has been an absolute explosion into the end of the year. We've seen more fundraising, more new funds than I think, and we'll wait for the data to come out as PitchBook's starting to tease out some of these already numbers in high. We're going to see maybe one of the biggest quarters we've had in the recent few years from an investing standpoint. Why that is? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. Where are we going? We're going to talk about that too. But before we do, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, click that subscribe button and tune in all day, every day, to all episodes of VCTV as we bring together the best and the brightest, as we have today, to share with you their thoughts and insights around different technologies, industries, and regions on the world, along with their on-the-ground perspective of what's happening and what they're seeing, and or what they may be investing into as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out, either as an investor or as an entrepreneur, and we'd love to have you on the show. As an entrepreneur, we have a virtual stage for you to pitch us your company or product or service, get real-time feedback, and exposure to the entire VCTV community as well. And a big thank you to our team at LATOKEN and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle, and let's go ahead and introduce our guest for today. Dear friend and coffee drinker, it's a pleasure to see you back here, Mark. Welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Sure, always a pleasure, Kyle. Really appreciate it for being part of this, well, very well-selected group, Kyle. It's always a pleasure to have these conversations. Mark Müller-Eberstein, I live near Seattle. Former Microsoftie, running a consulting business for the last 10 years, wrote a few books, member of the angel investment community here, of a bunch of different groups, co-managing investor groups, and very excited and passionate about helping entrepreneurs to change the world for the better.
Absolutely, and doing a wonderful job at that as well. Some of your, not only some of your core portfolio, but one of your portfolio companies or group that you're a part of the advising group, if I'm correct, Blockcelerate. Just saw that they raised a new fund, so congratulations to you and the team on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big feat to raise a 2-digit million fund, and I think Kate and Sam and the team did a very nice job of really establishing their organization as a trusted partner for a lot of high net worth individuals, but also institutional investors that are starting to go into this.
Absolutely. We've been lucky enough to have Sam on a few episodes recently here at VCTV. So definitely take a look back in the archive at some of those episodes to learn more about what Sam, Kate, and the Blockcelerate team are going to be focusing on. That's a shameless plug because they are doing something exciting for the community. So there you go. Tolga, welcome back to the show as well. Our man of everything electric vehicles. Welcome back. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm really excited to be a part of the last, I think, panel of this year for me. A little background. My name is Tolga. After working for companies like Electronic Arts, Spin Master, I started my own company called Thunderbolt and built multiple different companies under the umbrella of my own company and sold it to an investment company in 2018. And 2019, I was the CEO of that investment company called New Wave Holdings, based in Canada, and they went public in 2019 October. And after the break during the pandemic, I wanted to make a shift, and I started working with the fastest growing EV charging network in the United States, which is called Loop. Our new website is coming. I'm the VP of the company, and we are the fastest growing EV charging, electric vehicle charging network in the United States. And I'm really excited to share my opinions about the emerging markets, about my industry, electric vehicles and charging. And thanks for having me again. Appreciate it, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for joining us. Even if it's for one more episode here in 2020, it's been a wild year. We've had some fun episodes together, so let's have one more. Let's have some fun today. Raghu, welcome back as well. It's a pleasure to see you. A little intro, a little background.
Pleasure to see you, Kyle, and thanks to VCTV I'm from Princeton, New Jersey. I'm a serial entrepreneur, advisor, and business mentor. As an entrepreneur, I did a screening platform for the U.S. federal government for TSA, as well as developed the civilian portal USA.gov. And I've been helping companies in cybersecurity and green tech and clean tech recently.
And we did, and welcome back. And we did a great episode around cybersecurity. I believe it was yesterday or the day before as well. Raghu talking about where everything is going and throwing in quantum into that mix and how that's going to affect it, along with talking about artificial intelligence. So again, to the audience, check out the archive. A shameless plug over there for Raghu. Tons of great insights he provided to us around that topic. So welcome back. And last but not least, the one and only Lubna. Welcome back. It's an absolute pleasure to see your face today. I know you've had a crazy week. We've missed each other a few times, but it's a pleasure to have you here on VCTV. Little intro, little background for everybody.
Thank you. I'm Lubna Dajani. I'm a serial entrepreneur, technologist. I come from the technology side of the house with a passion for how technology affects the quality of life, and how do we apply technology to simplify everyday life rather than to add to the clutter of it. It is always an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's like a highlight of my day and of the things that happened in 2020 for me is to become associated with you guys. I love it. I love seeing you lifts my day. And as you know, I had a rough day. Yeah, I have interest in innovations up and down the stack of technology, a lot these days in identity and embedded security, in quantum, keys generation, because keys are at the root of security and crypto. So it's a lot. It's in quantum, in PUF technologies, as well as in a mix of graph knowledge-based implementations of blockchain for identity, personal data stores, and what have you. It's been a great year for innovation and disruption. If we can put the word "great" and "this year" in one sentence.
and you know what? Fairness, we should. It's been a transformative year, and I'm buzzwording out there a little bit, but it's very true, right? In terms of the acceleration that we've seen around different technologies and innovation over the year. Some of it was forced, some of it was long in overdue, and others just kind of came out of nowhere as a requirement that we were going to have and see, not just here in 2020, but for the decade in front of us, which led us as investors to just, where do we start putting our capital to work, right? Where are those new exciting technologies? Where are those good companies, products, and services? And where should we be paying attention to? And as we mentioned, first half of the year was very different to the second half of the year. This last quarter of the year is just a wild, crazy party here in terms of the funding landscape. But going forward into 2021, what does investing look like? Would love to hear from each of you as we round out this last few days of the year and look towards 2021. What does investing look like in the next year and potentially the next few years, as some of the stuff that we're looking at is really going to have great impact and change the way we think, live, and work as well. Mark, let's kick it off with you. Oh,
helping to get the mute button off. Yes, that's probably helpful. And by now, we all should figure out how that works. Well, you mentioned PitchBook, and I think it's really interesting to see what happened over the year. You're absolutely right. Second half, while we were all stunned in the beginning, the second half completely rocked in the volume of new deals, but also that got funded well. But also, and while PitchBook is focusing more on the VC community, the ACA, the Angel Capital Association, does their own research in the earlier stages. So they see a very, very similar trend across the United States, at least. Capital inflow into startups has been enormous. And I have to say, we have especially new companies that are taking advantage of the needs and opportunities and so providing real services and solutions to their customers very quickly, have done phenomenally. We have done a couple of investments during the time that turned out extremely well. because the companies and organizations delivered value very, very quickly. And I think those are really, really interesting things to see. I mean, while we had personal plugs, I was a former TED speaker. I just got an interview posted on the TEDx site for another 20 minutes, which is a little bit more deeper thinking about the general ideas of what's happening, just beyond investment, of course, as well. So if somebody wants to drill down, that's where they can find it. Just search on YouTube for my last name and you'll find it. But I think the investment space for us for next year will continue to be exciting. Interesting opportunities, a lot of companies that will not make it. So we'll definitely do some write-offs this year as well. But that's part of the game, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's, companies rise, they thrive, and unfortunately go the other way as well. And it's part of the life cycle for any ecosystem as well. And we want to come back to that and where you're seeing those exciting opportunities. So Mark, we're going to pause you right there, but Raghu, I want to come to you next. Thank you, Mark. And what do you see going into 2021 in terms of the investing landscape?
I think 2020 has not only been a transformative year, it's kind of set to use a pun. It's actually set the global vision, to 2020. So it's brought a lot of things that should have been priorities, I think, back up on top. So I see that for Q1 and Q2, there's going to be a lot of biotech and cyber tech at the top, and enabling technologies, of course, like AI and I think AR, VR, and anything to do with remote work and things like that is going to be top of mind. Then going into, I would say, more Q3, Q4, things like I think more longer term things like quantum and green tech, because now that different administration has come into the US, I think the green tech part, especially because they're thinking about spending there to kind of rev up the economy. So that I think should kick off as well. And I think in terms of, I'm very bullish on 2021 because there's going to be government spending as well as a lot of just always, and whenever there is a singularity like this, even though some of the companies that come up on top may raise a lot of money, may not deliver, but that technology spins into something else, and it really provides a lot of new platforms, and that's, I think, happening. And some of the older companies may, if they were not able to pivot, they may be having trouble, which again gives opportunities for distressed assets people who are looking for, and that's happening in certain industries as well. So.
Well, and you bring up two very good points. One, raising capital does not equal success. So we'll come back to that as well. But also, energy, green, and sustainability. I mean, these were all areas or impact investing as well that people had talked about, but they weren't really forefront. And maybe we're a little biased because we're fortunate to talk about them as much as we do here on VCTV with each of you. But it seems like it is a core part of the thesis. We saw Union Square Ventures and a handful of other funds actually create large dedicated funds for impact and sustainability investing as well. So thank you, Raghu, around that. And Tolga, I want to come to you next. Coming out to close the year, looking towards next year, what does the investment landscape look like in your opinion?
I agree with Raghu. I am also bullish in 2021. I think there's so much liquidity in the market. More is coming. And majority of this liquidity is going to go to governmental contracts, and also like through the VC companies, it's going to flow into technology startups or clean tech, renewable energy, these companies. I think the clear winner of 2020 was electric vehicles and remote working applications. I think this is gonna just flourish, and it's gonna continue to grow. Salesforce just acquired Slack. It just shows how real this remote working is, because it's a $27 billion deal. And for me, like electric vehicles are replacing the current trend of oil industry that owned the entire thing in the last 200 years since the beginning of industrial revolution. We have been using the consumable fuels like fossil fuels and everything. Now this is changing, and sustainability is literally going to become the main word of 21st century. I think sustainability is the most important word. I think all the investments and VC companies that are focusing on sustainability and clean energy, they're going to flow into transportation, electric vehicles, batteries. The battery technologies are growing. It's insane. And I think 2021 is going to be very, very interesting, and we're going to see a growth of electric vehicles. I think many other brands, Ford, GM, Nissan, the Japanese manufacturers, European car manufacturers, they're all getting into the space, and they're all creating their own EVs. So Tesla is not going to be the only player, I think. And in parallel, the EV charging companies as ours, Loop. We are growing. We're very, it's a very rapid growth that I actually never seen in my life, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. So I think this new year is going to bring a lot of positive, new, good things for all of us, for entrepreneurs, for investors. Yeah, these are my opinions.
Well, and we just got an announcement, or a rumored announcement, however you want to see it, around Apple yesterday and Project Titan, and how they may be getting into the EV game finally. And I only say that because it's been talked about for so long and teased and rumored, and finally it's starting to come out in announcements. And Toga, I'm going to come back to you on it, but I just want to throw it out there. And your mention around sustainability. I mean, look, we've got word that millennials and younger generations are willing to pay more for sustainable products. Sustainability goes beyond just stuff like electric vehicles and climate change. It goes to everything that we do. And I think you're right. That is going to be the word of the decade. And everything we do should be and will be sustainable in some way. And if not, we'll question it from all that we've been talking about here on VCTV. But Lubna, to you, closing out 2020, looking at 2021, what does the investment landscape look like from your viewpoint?
I agree with everything everyone said, so I will not repeat. I'll try not to. But maybe I'll emphasize. But it has been a transformative year, but it's been also a normalizing year. And while you might like normalizing data, I don't know how much I like normalizing people, but we are all in a similar place like we've never been before, as we're all wearing face gloves now, and we're all much more compliant, and we've all broken the boundaries of what is normal and what is acceptable and what is right and wrong. So it's so next year, I think, is a very promising year, but that's because I'm an optimist, a very big optimist. So I would say it's a promising year. But it's a reset year, because everything that was difficult to change or that was unthinkable is now, like sustainability was unthinkable in the beginning of the year, that it would be so popular by the end of the year. So, but, or whether it's remote work, which made sense all along. I've been doing it for 25 years, but people didn't understand how I could do it, and we will. That's why I know remote work will not continue to be as popular as it is, because I tell you, you'll get very sick of it after a while. And not that you can't. You don't want to work remote, but that it has to be a balance. We're always swinging from it's distributed, it's centralized, it's in-house, it's out, but it will be a blend. So there'll be, and who will win will in that is making the experiences more meaningful. So I think there'll be a lot more on the experiences we create. So the whether it's AR and VR and what have you, but I also think things around SSI and self-sovereign identity, digital identity, Everybody's and there's good and bad to that, but there you'll see a lot of companies coming through with innovations around security and self-sovereign identity and personal data stores. And how do we, and obviously digital finance, and how do we control that, and what we mean by user control. So it'll be interesting to see what comes in that space, because the very things that can liberate us can enslave us further. So I'm hoping that this year, not will it only have sustainability, but as you all know, I like to say, I think we need to go to regenerative practices so that we can achieve a place that we want to sustain. So regenerative practices for sustainable prosperity, as I like to think, should be the theme of 2021. And we would have, so I think a lot also in terms of architecture in smart cities or what have you, hopefully moving from smart cities to empathic cities, to integrate a bit more of the AI in a way that not just optimizes profits, but optimizes well-being. I think there'll be a lot in supply chain disruptions. Supply chain is a very big word, and it's but it's really, I look at it as a field of effect. It's not just, it's where you get and what is the causes and what the supply chain of your supply chain. So graph databases and knowledge databases type, a decentralized / distributed architectures, I think will start to service in terms of technology. But all traditional industries, I think, are due for disruption. So hopefully we'll see more a lot in tourism, some new stuff in tourism and such.
No, and it's perfect. I mean, it sounds like a lot of structure, a lot of systems that need to be or have
reset.
Necessarily, yes, that need to be reset and put in place as well. I mean, you bring up supply chain. This is something we started BCTV talking around, right? How blockchain and supply chains are integrating to create a more sustainable, not to buzzword out here too much, a supply chain, right? I mean, that supply chain process is huge, and so much plays into it from end to end on how we get our goods and services. And we saw that very much disrupted here in 2020, which we know cannot be the same going forward. And so you're bringing up some great points, Lubna. And Mark, I want to come back to you. You mentioned things from an angel perspective. So I want to drill down in that for a second.
Sure.
Looking at how 2020 just went all over the place. In 2021, as angels or running, the angel group that you do, how are you maybe looking at investments differently next year, as you may have in the past traditionally, right? For either from a diligence perspective, from an industry perspective, et cetera. How are you looking at things differently?
So one thing for sure is the way we do due diligence, and we're looking at companies, and even our contacts are made these days. Angel investment was a very, very, very personal relationship, I would say, over the last decades, at least since I'm doing this. You want to look the people in their eyes. Introductions at coming to friends are usually much more effective than all the cold calls that you get somewhere. Now, of course, during 2020, everything has moved virtually. Even so I'm a member of the Alliance of Angels. We are limited to 144 angels because that's the maximum amount of people that can have lunch together in this room at the Siena Tennis Club once a month. Of course, there are no lunches in 2020, so things have changed quite a bit. I mean, everything has moved virtually. So, which for entrepreneurs is a huge opportunity. They don't have to travel. They can pitch much, much easier. The angels, well, they don't have anything else to do. We're all sitting at home, and we are looking forward to have interesting conversations with entrepreneurs, as long as they're really done interestingly, effectively, down to the point. And that really hasn't changed pre-2020 to where we are today. So having a good pitch, a good story, being very focused on what angels want to hear makes all the difference of how you're coming across. I just spent like all day yesterday. I was part of the Alliance of Angels office hours. So I had one pitch after the one company coming to me after the other, just trying to find help, what's happening, plus a couple of other companies I came. But you can really see the differences of how far the entrepreneurs are in their thinking about how do I present my company. I think that's becoming even more important because, again, for an entrepreneur, if you get your pitch and your story and the value for investors, communities, and consumers and customers right, you have now a global audience of partners, of investors that are actually looking forward to working with you. You can reach out to anybody in the world. It doesn't matter if they're sitting in Seattle, in New York, or in Shanghai. All of these people are excited to look at the right opportunities, which basically means if you don't get traction, your story isn't right, because your audience is waiting for you. They are all out there for sure. And it means for us angels as well, we have to look about, and we have to learn. I mean, some of the areas as a US investor, yes, we understand US law, security laws, the issues of in the due diligence process much better than, let's say, a company in India, for example. It's just there's so many unknowns. Now, of course, with innovations happening globally, we need to learn as well. We need to find trusted partners. So if I'm looking at a company in India, who can I trust that understands the Indian market, the legal situation, the due diligence on the team and the background and all of these things that I can trust to make a fair assessment of that company and those entrepreneurs.
That's an absolutely wonderful point. And I want to just add on real quick. I mean, what you mentioned about being able to reach out to anybody, this is true. And we continue to echo this here on VCTV because we are all distributed around the world as well and come together for these episodes, to share our thoughts and insights. But it's very true. I mean, cold reach out right now works better than ever has. And most people don't have an excuse to not read or respond to these and or send them as well, right? As an entrepreneur or as an investor, go. There's no reason not to. You never know. I mean, Gary mentions this, Gary Fowler, one of our regular guests, mentions this all the time of who he reaches out to. I mean, you just never know. And now more than ever, it's true.
And it works the other way around too. I mean, we are looking, like as an investors, we are looking at interesting companies. And even if they're not raising right now, start to reach out on LinkedIn. So that's usually a good one. Or through LinkedIn, finding out who are the joint connections to some entrepreneurs of interesting companies. And we're reaching out to them and said, hey, what's your plan? When are you raising? How can we help? Not only with money, but with connections and introductions to build a relationship, a trusted value relationship over time that then potentially leads into investment eventually.
Right. We spoke about this yesterday, actually, a shameless plug on VCTV around social media and fundraising through this. And I've also reached out to companies through Twitter. We've had other speakers talk about Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and other social media presences as well that they have. And they've had the chance to meet great investments that have turned out very good for them. But also just in general, like built that network through social media when they couldn't do otherwise. So it's a great example. Thank you, Mark. And Tolga, I want to throw it back to you around Project Titan. I brought this up in the future of EVs. There's a ton of conversation of whether or not 2021 begins or really continues the same trend around EVs and if we'll start to see them. Apple comes out the other day and says, hey, we're coming. We're getting into the game. Get ready. What's your prediction on the future of EVs for 2021 and 2022? And whether or not we should start investing or start looking, or where we should start looking as investors in investing in the market outside of Loop, because Loop is great, but outside of Loop, where do you see the opportunities to start making bets, either as an investor or as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I'm a personally investor of multiple different EV companies, public EV companies. For example, just to give some hints, I think a lot of people heard about NIO. I'm an investor of NIO, and I'm an investor of also an upcoming company called Mullin. They are in the process of bringing Chinese exotic EV electric vehicle car maker called Dragonfly and one other SUV. There are very interesting companies that are coming into space other than the traditional brands like Volkswagen or Toyota. Like just recently, Toyota's chief executive made a comment about, EVs are overly hyped, and everybody disagreed with him. It just shows that even the very high top professionals in the automotive industry are still not fully digesting what's happening, but it is happening, and the electric revolution is here. The future is electric, And I think in 2021 to 22 is going to be just a continuing growth of this adoption. But I think the greatest shift will start happening after 2024, 25, when many brands, automotive industry brands get into the space and they actively start just manufacturing mass amount of EV cars. And the adoption, right now, the adoption is less than 1% all over the world. And we're still talking about this, saying that this is going to be the next thing. So imagine how this is going to be when the adoption is 50%, 70%. It's going to be massive. And for my industry, EV charging, the current prediction for the EV charging for 2023-24 is $20 billion industry size. But I mean, with 1% adoption, with 1 to 2% adoption, and this is, imagine you just multiply it with 50, we are reaching $1 trillion market. So, and this is, I think, the minimum amount as I think this is going to grow further than what oil industry brought us to this point. So I think we're talking about in long term, 2030 to 2035, we're talking about multiple trillions of dollars of industry in only on EV charging. Electric vehicle industry is even bigger because it's going to be a global, it's covering all the global transportation. In addition to this, the autonomous driving, and that is going to be also a massive changer in the game. I think the autonomous driving is going to determine which car manufacturer is the best one in the future. It's not the battery size or the range, but which car is the smartest car, which car gets into the least amount of crashes, accidents, because their autonomous driving is the best. I think this is a very, very hot market. And I also think that Apple getting into EVs, I think even they're even late, because right now when you're driving a Tesla, technically there's an iPad in front of you, and that's not Apple. Tesla is already like an Apple company because they're manufacturing all the Apple technology in their car. So Apple has actually trying to get into the automotive industry to compete with Tesla, but they don't. I'm not sure if they have realized this, but they're actually already Tesla is already competing with them in the space of Apple's industry. So it's massive. It's going to be very interesting. I'm very excited about it. And if you're curious to know more, I would love to chat. Yeah.
Well, and thank you, Tolga. And with that being said, all of it needs to be protected. There needs to be security measures put in left, right, up, down, A, B, C, D. We need to have it. So Raghu, I'm coming to you on this. Are we actually going to see security and cybersecurity and privacy taken seriously, whether it be in 2021, whether it be around EVs and laying that groundwork, or autonomous vehicles, or bio and pharma? I mean, 2020, we're not even finished, and we've already had a number of cases around security and privacy issues. Will this really be something we take seriously in 2021?
They call it the cyber pandemic, which is going in parallel to the health pandemic. So we have to, it's a wake-up call. It's not spared. It's not just the government, it's everywhere, rampant, pervasive across middle market, large companies. So I think something has to be done about it. A lot of tools are available from a preventive, reactive model in terms of best practices, risk management frameworks, but people have been kind of, check marking those things as opposed to really taking it seriously, and that part will happen. And then, of course, my specific company from my portfolio, Splitbyte, we are looking at, introducing a totally blue ocean concept of a data vaccine, where even if you're exposed, your systems are infected, it doesn't the breaches don't lead to system breaches, don't lead to data breaches. So I think next year, 2021, is going to be the year of cybersecurity. Because it is something that affect all, every industry. It doesn't matter. And what happened recently is real wake-up call, because OT security, right now is not as strong as even IT security, even in terms of the traditional technologies. I think they got into some of the Pentagon systems, but if they get into nuclear, I think nuclear weapons, something that was not very serious breach, but something even went there. So this is not, autonomous cars is another thing. I think Gary was, or somebody was talking about it in the last, show on cybersecurity. If they get into consumer things like, cars and things like that, they can do all kinds of damage. This is state actors are now into it big time. They have very large, resources at their disposal. When a state actor gets in, it's not like some random hacker, or smaller groups doing something. This is like huge resources, especially for stealing IP and things like that are going on. So cybersecurity, I think, has turned a corner. I mean, this whole thing with Sunburst is, I think, a real wake-up call. And and again, many of these things are global. And one of the things that 2020 has done is it's kind of globalized everything, where access is available now just through Zoom, right? Essentially. So I agree with what Mark was saying. I think it helps both ways for us to source deal as well as for the investors. From the investor side, but also for the entrepreneurs, they can reach to investors anywhere. And one of the things that I think where governments can really help here is things like angel investor tax credits, which in my state, in New Jersey, they give like a 20% angel investor tax credit, which is very, very big, because an investor putting in every dollar, they're getting 20 cents back within a year from the government. So I think those kind of incentives will go a long way to, help in terms of some of these geographical disparities that are happening right now. So
absolutely. Sorry, go ahead, Raghu.
No, I'm very bullish about cybersecurity in general on all the different things, but the companies that are actually doing these audits and assessments of systems, they have to go a level deeper instead of just doing something once a year or once in 6 months kind of thing. It has to be a continuous monitoring, where it's not anymore about just getting a check mark one time, authority to operate or something like that, and then coming back when you make an upgrade. You have to do these things all the time, continuously.
Right. Absolutely. And with that being said, we're coming up to closing thoughts. So real quick, where can everyone find you, Raghu, to continue the conversation?
I'm on LinkedIn at Raghu S. Rao, and I'm always available for anybody who's looking for advice or investment or anything. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raghu. Lubna, to you, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Echoing everything my colleagues have said. Of course, security, I completely agree. As you know, I'm a big fan of security, and it's a very big umbrella. Lots of things fall under security, from identity to authentication to what have you. The problem with security is digital trust. It's what we're really talking about. Digital trust from silicon through to service delivery. And that is a chain of trust. And the chain of trust can be breached and therefore needs to be protected at any one of the links, all the layers of the model, from the physical all the way to the presentation and to the application layers. And then you have you add on top of that the physical security of having trust in the people that have access to the systems, because nothing will that will always remain. So as the surface attack expands, as more of us get on digitally connected and requiring access like that, then it becomes much more palatable for and the pot is sweeter for those who want to breach it. So it makes total sense that there will be more attacks, and it makes total sense that therefore security at large, it becomes even sexier than ever. Security and sexy in the same sentence. My God. My name is Lubna, and you can find me, Lubna Dajani, at LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere else for that matter. Delighted to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Lubna, as well. And Tolga, real quick, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation around EVs, AVs, and the entire electric grid that we're about to put into place over the next few years?
Thank you, Kyle, for having me. This is the last one, the last episode for me. I'm so excited about 2021. Thank you again for having me. You can reach me from my website, tolgaonuk.com, and my name, Tolga Onuk, at LinkedIn. Feel free to, anyone who's watching this, feel free to send a message if you are curious to know more about Loop, EV charging, electric vehicles. I can tell you about my thoughts. I think, and my closing thought is, I'm so excited about next year. I'm very bullish about next year. I think it's going to be a way better year, and hopefully people are going to be happier. We're going to be all spending a beautiful year together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tolga. Last but not least, Mark, close us out. Make sure you get your sign up. Where can everyone find you online?
Absolutely. Well, in that case, I can't resist, right? Here, you can find me on Twitter. Yay, at my Mark M. Eberstein. Just for you, Kyle. Easiest way, that's where you can reach me. Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I share Tolga's long-term optimism. I think we will have a very challenging first 6 months globally for the first year for 2021. But I think, as I said, both in the e-mobility space, security space, I think there will definitely be lots of opportunities and necessities for us as citizens of the global world to really come together and embrace a lot of these technologies and be far more active in leveraging, understanding, and using them to move us forward. A lot of changes will happen. I think office space will look very different. On the other hand, if you look at real estate, like local distribution warehouses, even data centers in cities are jumping up like crazy. So there's a lot of opportunities in this shift that is happening, but change is difficult for all of us. So those that are able to see the positive outcome of the change and then optimizing for it as entrepreneurs, as investors, and even as individuals, those are the folks that will come out stronger at the end of this transformation. And we have to figure out as a society how we can handle the folks that cannot do it for whatever reasons. With that, thank you very much, Kyle, for a fantastic 2020 and the LATOKEN team. Really appreciate being part of it and looking forward to see what we can achieve together in 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I couldn't do it without the LATOKEN team and Maria. We thank you all very much. We very much appreciate all of your time as well and thoughts and insights. And it's been a wild year and looking forward, as you all said, to an exciting one next year. And thank you again, each and every one of you, Tolga, Mark, Raghu, Lubna, for sharing your thoughts and insights to your audience. Make sure you definitely reach out to all four of them. They're all available on their respective social media sites, as they said. Make sure you add context when you do, where you met them, what you want to talk about, and why you're reaching out, so you can have a productive and great conversation as you build those relationships with each and every one of them. And also, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up if you like what you heard, and do reach out. Thank you, Tolga. Thank you, Luna. Thank you, Raghu and Mark. If you do like what you heard, reach out. We'd love to have you on the show as well, either as an investor like our wonderful trio or quad, all four of them here today, to join us to share your thoughts and insights about different industries, technologies, and regions around the world, or as an entrepreneur to join us on the virtual stage to kick off your 2021 by sharing your company, product, or service with each and every one of us and the VCTV community to get real-time feedback, build relationships, and maybe something more. With that being said, a huge thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me at Kyle Ellicott everywhere online, along with all of our investors, and we'll be back here tomorrow for more VCTV. Check us out. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.